Okay, welcome back to episode 13 now of Ag Inspire, and the concept is simple. It's to have interesting conversations with people doing inspiring things in agriculture, and my next guest is no different. He's not a million miles away from me, over the road, the other side of Wicklow. He's dairy farmer John Kelly. John will be known to a lot of people, very active on social media, would have spoken at farming conferences. Somebody I followed for a long time. I've got to meet him, and I think he's one of the real opinion leaders in Irish farming. He mightn't say that himself, but I think he is. I think a lot of people listen to his opinions because, as I said to him before, I think they're his own and they're well thought out. Former sheep farmer, now dairy farmer, family man and exercise enthusiast. I'm looking forward to having this conversation. John, first and foremost, good morning and welcome to Ag Inspire Conversations.
Thanks very much, Tommy. I don't know, can I live up to any of that introduction, but we'll see what happens anyway. So.
Start as high as you can go, John, and then after that we'll... No, absolutely. No, John, thanks for being on, but I did say to you when I asked you to have a conversation with me that you're somebody, social media can be very noisy, there's lots of discussion on it, but I always have a flick on and see what's John Kelly doing on his farm. What's he saying? Now, sometimes there's always a good sense of humour thrown in there as well, a little bit of controversy. But you are at the cutting edge, I think, of what's happening, and you're very relevant. So you're certainly a benchmark for me, and I think a lot of other people in that respect. But first and foremost, John, I suppose give people a little bit of background to yourself, your own route into agriculture. As I said, you were a sheep farmer. Now you're a dairy farmer, although there is sheep has been seen on your farm. Tell people a little bit about yourself, and we'll go into maybe your farming system then after that.
Yeah, listen, I'm originally from Derry, a place called Claudy, County Derry, born in the north. 1979 I was born, seems like a long time ago, but yeah, I grew up in the north, was there till I was 13. My dad was a pig farmer in the north, and the whole family up sticks and moved to Kildare for 6 months, and then we ended up, my dad bought this place in Wicklow. So yeah, I think I came down here junior cert a year, had 6 months of junior cert, and did 2 years of leaving and then left. And in between that, I worked, went to France for a bit and worked on a farm there when I was young, and worked on a shoot and stuff like that. Then I applied for Ag College and went to England to do Ag in Harper Adams. Did 4 years there, 1 year practical, did that down in Hampshire. Then I worked for a couple of years with horses in Coolmore, went to Australia, I worked for the Aggie Can, did yearling prep, all that sort of crack. That's where I met my wife, Caroline. I always knew she sort of liked me when she followed me to Australia. It was a subtle hint that she was interested. I haven't ever lived that down yet, but yeah, so, and I always had an inclination to farm, or I always knew I wanted to farm, but I really didn't know what, Tommy. I really had no idea. At one stage, I applied for computer science in Maynooth and was accepted to that, and then backed out of that in the last minute and went on and finished my ag degree. But yeah, I started with sheep because there was a young farmers grant at the time to get money for, I think it was 9,000 or something. And for me, sheep was the cheapest way into farming. And in fairness to my dad, he was very forward looking. He gave me my own bit of ground and let me tear away. And that's continued to this day. We're not a typical father-son relationship. We farm separately and always have done. And he's stepped back more and more as he's got older and I've got older. And yeah, I'm milking cows now. So that's where we are.
John, what was that when you were 13, that transition from, moving from the north down to the south? Was that a big part of your life, or were you at an age where you just transitioned down and it wasn't a challenge?
No, I didn't enjoy it, Tommy, to be honest. I was never that confident as a young guy. At class, I'd be the last to put up my hand. And that followed me through all the way, even through college. And I don't know where confidence has come out of later in life, but I wasn't that confident when I was young. It was a big change for me. Just trying to settle into school midstream, stuff like that wasn't that easy, but it wasn't traumatic either, but it wasn't easy. We came out of the north. It was still the troubles. I grew up during the troubles and all that crack. So maybe our life wasn't normal anyway. It was normal for where I grew up, but it maybe wasn't normal for other people. But yeah, it's just part of life, and maybe stood to me later in life. It made me a bit more independent and a bit more resilient. I think you often see that with kids, if they've maybe not trauma, but if they've something a bit harder in upbringing, it does stand to them later in life. And kids are very resilient too. Like I don't think it's scarred me or anything, but
no, I think it is very interesting, because we're seeing, like, we'll talk about families in a bit, because you have a large flock yourself, like myself. But I see my own kids going to school is they're adapting to the changes around them pretty seamlessly, or so it seems like. So there is, I think children have that resilience. I want to go back and talk of just that confidence piece, because, like, I've got to know you, I've got to meet you on a few occasions. The last thing you said to me was, "Jesus, Tommy, you're some man to talk," and I'm still digesting what you meant by that. But you know, how did you develop confidence? Because it is a challenge for a lot of people as they go through their lives, and people would see you now as somebody who's quite confident, quite sure of himself. Was there a process there, or does it just evolve over time?
Yeah, there's probably a few things going on, Tommy. It always helps when you know what you're talking about for a start. Like a lot of time at school and that, you don't really know what's going on. You're maybe more socially awkward. People develop at different ages when you're younger. There's a whole lot of mix of things going on there. That's maybe part of it. Part of it too is that bit of maturity, and to maybe separate yourself from the argument sometimes. That's what I find helps me. You see a lot of people get tied up to their opinions, and my opinions do change. Yeah. I have a friend, and he'll friend Ryan Carney, he'll often take the mickey and say, "What's your opinion today, John?" So I do change my opinions. So yeah, maybe separating your own self-worth from your opinion on a certain subject at the time, because that can change and evolve, and we all change and evolve. And that's where sort of cancel culture is a bit weird to me, because I'm not the same person I was 5 or 10 years ago. My opinions have changed. I'm a bit more understanding of things, a bit more mature, understand myself a bit more. Yeah, and maybe understanding yourself too helps as well. Your own personality type, how other people are made up, and the difference there makes a huge impact on how you see yourself. So yes, it's a slow burner, confidence, and I think it's better that way, Tommy, than that super confidence which has no foundation at all. Like I think you're better to have somebody who's a bit thoughtful, and that confidence just develops over time. Listen, and there are some people who are very confident from the get-go, and fair play to them, but I was never somebody like that.
But massive self-awareness there, even just to think about those type of things. But it is maturity. It is that, and I see that about your opinions, John. Is you have but isn't that a great thing? I think that we're able to say, this is what I thought about today. And even the way farming is evolving so quickly, we kind of have to be able to adapt to maybe new science that's come at us, legislation that might be changing. Is that something helpful in farming, that you're not kind of maybe stuck in your ways, that you're saying, right, I didn't agree with it. If you told me that 10 years ago, no way. But now, I've read a bit more, and I've heard people say it a bit more, and now I can accept that. Is that something that's valuable in farming? Are we good at that in farming?
I don't think we are good at it. But it's something that's crucial, I think. I often see it with some very good farmers, very technical, sharp guys, but they're such strong advocates for agriculture, Tommy. It's nearly a downside, because they're not open to what other people are saying. And just that skill of listening is so crucial. And I've got better at that over the time. When I was younger, I was very, very headstrong. When I started the Monitor Farm thing, I was very headstrong. I was keen for information, but I was driven, and I had a goal in sight, and it didn't matter what was going on around me. I was focused on that goal. But I don't think that's a great way to be in the long run. Maybe it's good for short bursts, and it's a good trait to have, but you need to slow down and understand where people are coming from. And I see that with a lot of environmentalists. Even reading their articles, the way they're phrased, it can drive you mad reading it. But in between all that, they have some truth to speak to us, that if we'd listen, it might bring us closer together. And who knows what the future will hold, but it definitely won't look like today. Anyway, Tommy, it's going to change. Things are changing. There's more pressure on environmental side of things in farming. I don't believe the current system is sustainable, which is an awful word that can be used anyway, but I don't think that high stocking rate model is going to be sellable to the public or to environmentalists going forward. I do worry about things like that. It's a complex thing, Tommy, you know, and you could delve into all sides of that and what way the advisory bodies are going, and they have a job to do. They're trying to advise the masses, but I don't think there's a vision there for the future, Tommy, that we should all be buying into.
There's a lot of conversations occurring, John, around it at the moment, but it is about the open-mindedness there. And I get frustrated sometimes when I read environmental articles that, you know, it's almost like a bashing side of it. There has to be that middle ground, you know, and it comes from both sides though. It's not just farmers, you know, that have to listen. I think the environmentalists have to understand where farming is, and I don't think it's a two-way street yet, but somewhere in the middle. And I see those conversations happening, and I actually see a lot of farmers on their own bat very proactively looking at, well, this is coming down the line. This is what I'm going to do on my farm.
In fairness to the environmental guys, they're not trying to have a conversation with us. I think you're dead right about that, Tommy. We're not having a conversation, and we're in that period of time where there's one side on one end of the spectrum, and there's another side on the other end of the spectrum, which is reflected across all society at the minute. But they're trying to move the needle of debate. They're trying to influence the public, and they've been very effective at that. Farmers, we're still stuck in the politician, sort of lobby the politician, affect change that way. We're going straight to the legislators with technical stuff and defending our position. Like, I look at farmers, we're defending the status quo, you know. Whereas environmentalists, they're talking to the public. They just skipped out the politician nearly. They're affecting the public and the public opinion, and that's where the pressure's coming on to politicians, and that's shaping the debate far quicker and more effectively than we have. We have a big press there, but we tend to just read stories about each other. And we have very few journalists who cover agriculture and who actually understand agriculture. And as an industry, we're quite hard on those people instead of trying to win them over, which is incredibly frustrating sometimes, incredibly frustrating. I see journalists with a real passion for agriculture, and if they say something, it's not even controversial. If they say something that's uncomfortable for us, we just round on them. And that is no grown-up way to strategize for farmers or how we're going to win this debate. We've sort of lost that real connection with consumers for no fault of our own, really. It's the way our industry's been shaped. It's got bigger and it has got more professional. Those who haven't moved, by and large, have gone out of business, Tommy. That's an uncomfortable truth. There are some people at the edges there. There's some organic guys, and there's some guys who are making a living sort of unconventionally. But I feel like any answer for the industry has to help all the industry. It can't just be for organic farmers. We can't all go organic farmers. Organic farmers know that the market's too small. So when I come at the environmental thing, I often think that the answer has to be for everybody. It has to be an industry-wide discussion. And industry's been very poor that way as well. There's an awful lot of window dressing there. Even my own co-op would have had a small payment for environmental benefit, but it was so small, it was farcical, and it wasn't serious. Like, and as a farmer, I would have found that slightly insulting. And listen, not many farmers want to talk about environmental issues, and they don't see them important. But as farmers, we've been so good at producing food, it's nearly a given now. It's nearly a weakness. People take it for granted. They don't think about food security, and they have moved on to things like the environment and welfare. and those things are important, and that's what we're facing into as an industry.
What's your opinion on Greta Thunberg? When you talk about politics, right? And again, my opinion probably has changed, because there's certain things I would disagree with her, and she's still a child when you talk about maybe her as a person. But like, you talk about changing perceptions or legislation versus people power. I was sort of overwhelmed by the movement that she created, and I don't agree with everything. But it's sort of interesting to see that type of thing. What's your opinion on that type of environmental discussion, or maybe what she's achieved?
Yeah, like her or loathe her, and you can throw, and it's maybe not fair to mention her name, like she is a young girl and she's very passionate about it, and she makes lots of good points. But the catastrophing of the whole thing, I don't think that helps, and that's an environmental thing. The end of the world is coming, and listen, the climate's definitely changing. It's so complex, Tommy, and you can't take agriculture on its own. It's transport, it's the way we have a consumer society. It's where you can go to Pennies and buy a t-shirt for $5 or socks, all that adds up. It's a whole slice of things. I think farming's an easy target because we are the closest to the environment, so we're going to be the first to be tackled, but it's the way society's gone, Tommy. It is that viral thing that catches the imagination. You can say it doesn't last that long, but it definitely makes an impact. The pros for agriculture are so complicated, even the methane, and my God, I maybe have finished 3 articles on methane and the carbon cycle in cows. They're so complex. My God, they're so complex. And that's hard to sell. People like the short, sharp answer, and the reality of life, it's full of nuance. It isn't black and white, and that's the difficulty. And that's the viralism, that activism is viral, but when there's a long answer.
I know you're very active in social media, John. Has social media just accelerated that, right? Like, has accelerated noise? You talked about cancel culture. You talked, we've seen it here in Ireland with Golfgate. I've heard you throw comments on, make comments on that. That it's like we're almost like a pack of wolves, that we're moving to the next scandal. We attack, and then we're finished there. We move on to the next thing, and that scandal might have been minimal. It might have been massive, but it's almost forgotten because we're moving so fast to the next scandal. Has social media just accelerated a bit of rage? Is it the disconnect? What's your opinion as someone who's active on it?
It has, definitely, Tommy, and it has changed. I used to really enjoy it when I started first. It was just so mischievous and new at the time. It wasn't so serious. People were a bit more irreverent then. It's even sometimes I'd be poking fun at guys who I know well who poke fun at me, and other guys would jump in and would be offended for them, and I'd send them a message that says, Jesus, like, I have no problem if I offend somebody, I have no problem apologizing for. But they would say, no, I'm grand, but other guys would be taking high offense at it, which is fine. And social media is that it's like that now. Everybody's so polarized, and it's that instant reaction, that emotional reaction that people are writing down, and that emotional reaction always isn't the best reaction to put down. And listen, I'm not great at times myself. I have weak spots as well, and I get myself into trouble. And I'm no stranger to it as well, Tommy. I've got a bit better at it, but I still slip up now and again. But yeah, it doesn't help. Any of that media stuff doesn't help. Even national TV programs, the debates section, where complex debates are broken down into little 5-second snapshots. It's very hard to have a proper debate like that, Tommy. And I have some great screenshots of people on TV, and there'd be an environmentalist slating it, and below it there'd be an ag guy praising it. Just the tweets happen to appear right beside each other, and that just sums it up for me. And that's why I've tended to drift more towards podcasts and that sort of long form conversation where it's not so adversarial, where it tends to be one-on-one, where somebody gets the chance to expand their ideas. You get time to think about it and make up your own mind if they're right or wrong. that thing of bringing on two people to the radio, one person's at this side of the debate, one person's at that side of the debate, and they're scared of their lives to meet in the middle, and they're going to defend that to the last. And that's if we went out for a meal, Tommy, we wouldn't talk like that. You'd have your opinion, I'd share mine, and we'd gradually come to the middle or agree to disagree. And that's totally lost with social media. And it does seem endemic at the minute. I see it all the time. I see it with journalists taking themselves extremely seriously. And sometimes they confuse their own opinion with the circulation of the paper, which is never a good thing to do.
What podcast do you listen to, John?
Oh, I listen to an awful lot. All sorts. Hobby type ones, ag ones, guys who would sort of personal development type ones. I don't want to say intellectual ones, but guys that would talk about ideas and stuff, because that sounds awful intellectual. Because I'm no intellectual. No, well, I can't sum it up anyway. They talk about ideas. They would talk to people in different fields. I just find them fascinating, and it's something when I'm walking around at work I can put in my ears and listen away to. Like, to be honest, I've given up watching the news, Tommy. I find I can find out what's happening in the news without watching the news. I've totally broken away from that news cycle sort of stuff, and I'm happy I've done it.
Tell me about your farming system. You talked a little bit about having goals and set out goals, and my second episode of Ag Inspire was somebody that you work closely with, Andre. You talked about the efficiency of the system, maybe good people in it. Just talk a little bit about maybe the overall systems. What's really working in your system as a larger farm, employing people? What are your I suppose let's go to KPIs then. What are your drivers in your business at the moment? What are your metrics that you're looking at? Maybe where are your goals and what are the metrics you're looking at in your dairy farming system?
Yeah, of all the standard stuff, Tommy, the 6-week calving, the growing and utilising grass, compact calving, labour, hours work, we try and minimise that, to be honest. I'm lucky we've a real good guy who works for us. Matt came as a student maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and he's still with us. As we've grown, Matt's grown with us. Matt also works at home. He's a farm at home there, and we try and fit in his hours with his farm at home. If he needs time off to go there, he goes. He works hard when we need him in the spring, and the rest of the year, Matt's on a 4-day week. Means I have to work a little bit harder, but I'm quite happy to do that, to keep a guy like him. We don't tend to work long hours, Tommy. We cups on at 7, and we could be walking out the farm gate at 4:30 or 5. I have a relief milker on a Sunday. Lucky to have a very good guy relief milking. Probably knows more about cows than me. His sons actually start milking in Sunday evening, so he milks the Sunday morning, his son milks the Sunday evening. We have some very good contractors. We have some very good advisors, like Andre there and Valerie Hobson, another girl, would help us quite a bit.
I'm laughing now because you give Valerie such a hard time at times, but there's real respect for her as well.
She's such a capable girl, it's scary. We talk about women in ag, but my God, any women in ag I know would wipe the floor with me. But so we try to look at it holistically, Tommy. We are focused when we're at work, and we are production focused at the minute. Where we go from here, I'm not too sure, but we do take it into the overall thing, because we're conscious of family life and enjoying life, and we do take our farming very seriously. We're starting to try a few different things on farm that would have maybe come through my dad. My dad has always been quite environmentally aware. He's always planted forestry. He has always fenced off waterways long before it was fashionable or you got paid for it. We have a lot of new mixed species, like a mixed forestry around here, hardwood and stuff, with a lot of it, a lot of bird crop stuff. So we're trying to mix species stuff. We're lowering nitrogen. We're trying to tackle that environmental thing. And I think you're right what you said earlier. It is very much farmer driven. I see that's the way it's going. I don't think we have time to wait. We may start trying things. It takes a while to see what works and what doesn't work. I don't think any answer going forward is going to be as simple as the system we have at the minute. That's for sure. the perennial ryegrass nitrogen system is very simple, but I don't think it's the system of the future.
You had a lovely picture of your wildflowers. Talk to me about your wildflowers. My mother is very much into nature and environment at home, and she's an avid gardener, and she has her wildflowers. And your wildflowers put hers to shame. I was down in Kerry a couple of weeks ago. Talk to me about your wildflowers.
My wildflowers, I paid for them last week, and I nearly had a heart attack, Tommy, when Valerie gave me the bill for them. But that's a different story. Yeah, listen, I look at the environmental thing like it's going to be very hard to find a silver bullet for it. Little things like that make such a difference, even to the way people look at a farm. The reaction I got to those poxy little patch of flowers, and they're not poxy, I really like them, but people really identify with that. And it was a bit of waste ground behind the parlour that I wasn't grazing, and every farm has lots of areas like that, lots of areas. And I'm going to do more on that. That was my third attempt at it, would you believe? We dug out a new Chinese pit, and I scattered flowers and that, and they never took. And I scattered flowers along a riverbank, and they never took. So eventually I took it seriously this time, said, my God, I'm going to have to till this and sow it. And Caroline got them for me in Quinns and came out, and I sowed them, and she sat down. It was a real hot sunny day. I sat down and I sowed them and I raked them, and the kids were there eating an ice cream saying, what the hell are you doing, John? But yeah, I was really happy with them, Tommy. We've got a couple of beehives there as well on the farm, and I just think it's going to be a combination of things like that. Maybe it's dishonest that we're selling ourselves that way, but it's definitely part of it. It definitely won't hurt doing little things like that. You see people laughing at me, flowers and mixed species,
Hemp jacket mix.
Yeah, they get a bit of a giggler, like, look at Kelly, what the hell is he doing? But joking aside, those things might be more important than people realize.
Absolutely, I agree with you. People won't have seen this, but you answered the phone to Caroline rang you, your wife Caroline there, and this is something that I suppose I've known you through social media, John. I've got to meet you a few times, and often when you meet people, the reality of social media mightn't be the same in their real life, but it's you are very much the John Kelly you see on Twitter. But one thing that's always struck me is you have a great relationship with your wife Caroline, and there I got a brief introduction to it there. You were saying goodbye, babe. There's that real connection there. You have 5 young kids. Family is very, very important to you, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is. Yeah, I'm very lucky to be married to Caroline. She's been very patient with me. I haven't always been the most attentive husband. When I was younger, I was very driven. Was involved in a lot of farm type stuff, and took a lot of half days to go to meetings and things. If she asked me a half day to go somewhere, I said, "Oh, Jesus, too busy. Couldn't be doing that." And to be honest, it was only when I sat down to plan what we wanted to do, what I want. We sat down as a couple and said, "We'll write down what we've achieved and what we want to achieve." And I thought when I sat down to write what we've achieved, it would be a lot of work-related stuff, and it wasn't. It was nearly all personal. It was the important stuff, and that was the first little inkling to me that was really important. That personal stuff is the stuff you remember. It's the stuff you really value, and however important work is, it needs to fit in around that, not the other way around. We subsequently went and did a sort of, they call it mark and measure course in New Zealand. With a New Zealand woman, I can't remember her name now, but it was really good. There was a business section to it before, like a 5-day course. I did that on my own, but we did the couples. It was mostly couples did it, and we sat down and talked about our vision, where we wanted to go. Our actually is up on my wall here, our planet page, vision and values. We have it up on our wall, and that was a real big thing for Caroline and myself. We realized our core values were very, very similar. Caroline was always sort of doubting me, but she didn't realize how much I understood her and what made her tick. And it's just can't overemphasize how important communication is between a couple. To this day, we do the accounts together. Caroline would help during the spring, but she mightn't be on farm that much after spring. She's a great help during spring with Calvin, and she works harder than I do. But just keeping in touch doing the financials is a real thing for us. But Yeah, it's just so important, Tommy. Just kids want to see you at the football games. They know you're there. Yeah, we've 5 kids. They're all, are the youngest doing something at the minute. Eldest is playing hurling and football and basketball. The youngest is second down from that is football and basketball. Then we have a girl. She's playing football at the minute and basketball. And then we have a younger lad playing soccer and football. And then we have a 4-year-old who is just finding her voice at the minute. So we have it all going on. So, yeah, so you have to make time. Time doesn't happen for family and work. You have to make time. And then between that, we're trying to find time for myself and Caroline, either to go for breakfast or to go out for a night. And then I like to do my own things as well. I'm trying to keep fit into sort of martial arts type stuff and running and yeah, just sort of weights and stuff and bits and pieces.
How do you organise that? Because a lot of people in farming families and businesses, and myself there, I mean, you're telling the story of all of us with families. And I think anyone in relationships, how do you manage to organise yourselves? And I know people say, geez, you have to plan your relationship. Like, you know, but planning does work. Like, how do you organise that busy schedule, John? What you described there, I have some of the similar challenges. So I'm interested to know how do you plan out your week? Is it something that naturally happens? Is it just that good communication piece allows it? But if you're going to get exercise in, spend time with the kids, milk cows, run a business, have relationship time, do you have a plan?
We do actually do a plan. It might sound sad.
No, I think it's something we don't have. I'm really interested. This is personally now, Tommy, very interested in what you're going to say next.
we have a wall planner, so a monthly wall planner, quite a big one. So it's got each week, and the whole family sits down, kids and all, and we write down what everybody's doing for the week. So the kids are split into two. The youngest has got away with it so far, but 2 of the kids are on dishes during the week and 2 of the kids are on dogs. So they feed and look after the dogs and put them to bed. The other kids do the dishwasher, fill it and empty it. Okay. And then after that, it's up for grabs what's on. So like last night, Harry had a football game in Arklow, so he was at that. It just goes like that, Tommy, and the kids say what they're doing during the week, and that usually goes down first. And then me and Caroline put down what we'd like to do. And you either say your piece or forever hold your piece at that stage. So that's it, set in stone for the week, unless something very important comes up. But it sounds awful, but it's a bit of fun sitting around with the kids. They put up their hands, can I speak now? And we take turns at sharing it, so somebody else might write down the stuff. It puts in people's heads what's going on in the week. And I find that at work as well. We don't do it every week with Matt and I, but most weeks we'd write up on a board what we're doing for the week. And just to have that for people, what's happening, it gives them time to think about it and prepare for it, rather than somebody rocking up that day and say, well, you're going here now. And yeah, I know, like Caroline's at work today, she's at work tomorrow, and she's at work Friday. So I know I'm picking up the kids today at 3 o'clock and tomorrow. And in fairness, God bless the slow cooker, the dinner's more or less done for them. I just have to do pasta or something. So yeah, I'll feed the kids and I'll go back and do a bit of work. And yeah, this evening I'm going to do a bit of fitness stuff. And Sean has a football game tomorrow, and the week goes on like that. So
I'm taking notes here, John, because without plans, there's chaos, and chaos causes all sorts of issues, whether it be in relationships, businesses, farms, doesn't matter. So I'm taking notes on that one. You're obviously a fitness enthusiast. Talk to me about your fitness regime, how you fit in around it. And actually, Andre, our mutual friend, said something very interesting about running. That in episode 2, it almost saved his life. And he and sometimes when you talk about fitness, maybe it's geez, you've time for that. That's But talk to me a little bit about maybe how important fitness is to you and some of the stuff you do. In your weekly life, in your day, in your week or your month, whatever it might be.
Yeah, that time is precious to us, Tommy. Like, we could get involved in a lot of stuff, and I have been asked to do a lot of stuff. And I see guys writing there that young people should stand up and chair things. But to me, that time's more important than any of that. And I have so much time to give out. So much goes to work, so much goes to family, and what's left there isn't a huge amount, Tommy. So yeah, I've gone from one thing to the other. I used to do a lot of cycling, and I've done a bit of running, nothing like Andre is doing there, but I've done a bit of running. I go to sort of like a CrossFit type thing there. I was doing that as well. I'm still doing that, but the times are switched around there. It doesn't fit in the minute, but hopefully it's coming back when everybody's back to school. And I also do a thing called jiu-jitsu, which is incredibly hard to explain to people. It's basically rolling around trying to choke people. So I do that as well. Those things, nobody wants to talk about farming, which I love. Nobody cares. You're meeting people from all walks of life. The benefit to that exercise is immense. You know, there is a mental side and a physical side to it. I was always sort of active that way, but I do think you need to look after your body. It does have benefits. You do sleep better. You feel better. Yeah, it's quite important to us.
Talk to me about another thing that I would have seen you talk about in the past was mindfulness. Now, when you talk about mindfulness, maybe in general society there is the images of the monks in the Himalayas, but certainly it's a topic when you talk about it in farming, people go, oh, where is he coming from now, or where is she coming from when you talk about mindfulness? But my own personal experience with it is it's one of the most powerful tools when you're exceptionally busy. I use it to get out of stress when I was stressed from work years ago, and it's probably a tool not just to get out of stress, but probably actually become more focused again. And I've heard you talk about mindfulness. Is it something you practice, John? Do you want to talk a little bit about, you know, your opinions on mindfulness? Maybe what it is, first of all, and your opinions on it.
Yeah, it's even harder to explain to people than jiu-jitsu. Even quite forward-thinking guys just roll their eyes at me when they hear me talk about it. So, yeah, listen, yeah, it was a girl, Holly Beckett. You probably know her. She's an Nuffield scholar from the UK there, but she introduced it to me. My God, 4 years ago or more. Yeah, for me, it's really helped with that understanding other people's views and myself. The way I would describe mindfulness is it makes you realize how little control you have over your thoughts. The way when you start to meditate, it's basically as simple as saying, just going to have a clear mind, you're going to just concentrate on your breath and think of nothing. And it's only a matter of seconds before a thought spills into your head. And that's, it makes you realize that it's not one thought, there's like a waterfall of thoughts just flowing out of your head all day long. And a lot of them aren't conscious thoughts. You haven't sat down and thought these things through productively or methodically. It just makes you aware of it, and being aware of that's the first step to having a sort of a more calm and balanced mind. You know, you learn to switch that sort of stuff off. You learn to focus. It takes a bit of practice. It doesn't take that much practice. I'm no sort of meditating, floating Yoda yet, but I would say it works. My wife would be the first person to say she knows when I'm meditating regularly. I'm a lot calmer, a lot more present, just a lot more relaxed. And that's the sort of stuff you can't buy. People do get that with running, but that's more a byproduct of running. Whereas you learn to meditate, it gives you that skill directly to control your mind, not control, but to regulate it. And that's the difference I would put with meditating and running or any of those other exercises would get into that flow state where your mind's pure and you're concentrating. But that meditating, you learn how to control your thoughts and you can tap into that during the day. You don't have to go for a 30-mile run to tap into that, you know. So it just makes you more aware of your own thoughts and feelings, and yeah, just find it a massive benefit, Tommy.
John, before people think we're too serious, we're exercising, we're meditating. What about you have a good sense of fun or sense of humor to anybody who knows you? Sometimes it's almost a dangerous sense of humor. What will a good friend of ours out the road here, Paul Tobin, would say? What would Kelly say next? Is a line he said to me. He said to me recently. But it's important to have a sense of fun. Have we lost our sense of humor? Have we got too serious? Are we afraid to say things now? And my friends would say to me, "Jesus, they call me a second name, Heffernan, you're gone very serious," and I have, But I do try and go back every so often to that bit of, the good sense of humor and fun. But I do find, is it a maturity thing? What's your opinion on humor and fun?
Yeah, I don't think anybody should take themselves too seriously. That's the first thing, because none of us are a bloody oracle. Things change during life. Our own views are based on our own experiences, and people have a totally different experience. Two people can hold different opinions, can be right at the same time, Tommy, I would find a sense of humor as vital. It does get me into trouble. Jeez, I can't help myself at times. I shouldn't say that, but meditating should help that. But I delete a lot more tweets these days, Tommy, than I send. But yeah, I do get myself into trouble, and I do poke fun at people, but I'm quite happy for people to poke fun at me, and it happens regularly, So yeah, that lack of we need to not take things as seriously. Gets back to the people. Any little insult is the end of the world. There's very little perspective anymore. Maybe it's hard to read perspective in a tweet or on social media. It's hard to read that nuance, but God, you need to enjoy life a little bit. It's not. Life can be serious at times, and we can have very serious things that happen. People can die, or people can be severely depressed, and there are serious things that can happen to people. But outside of that, Jesus Christ Almighty, we need to relax a small bit, I think.
Have a little bit of fun along the way. John, what does the future look like? I mean, anyone who knows you will know how focused and driven you've been. I think we got a real sense of that from our conversation, how focused you've been on goals, and maybe you've got a little bit more relaxed and nuanced and looked outside of your business goals. But you still are, whether it be fitness, farming, family, you do a good job what you're doing. So what does the future look like for dairy farming for you, do you think? What are the trends? We talked about the environment a lot, but what are the trends that you're really starting to listen to? And maybe, do you have a vision, for where you'll be in 10 years' time? Do you have a path? Will you still be dairy farming? Are all options open to you? What does the next 10 years look like, and why maybe some of the influences that have made you think like that? It's probably a hard question.
Yeah, I had a sheep walk, Tommy, and I said I'd never milk cows. Who would want to get shit on in a parlour? So always got to be careful trying to predict the future. And I listened to a businesswoman the other day, and she said the most she doesn't do 5-year plans, 18-month plans is the most she can be accurate in. So with that in mind, I don't think we'll be farming as intensively. The way the environment is more important, the way you see sprays being taken off the market, the way you see nitrogen, the effects of nitrogen being taken into consideration. The environment's definitely going to be more important. I've never bought into the we need to feed the world argument. Commodity prices have remained deflationary over the long run, so that argument never really stacks up. It's a difficult one, Tommy. It's really difficult. Ag industry is still very powerful. There's still rationalization is still going on unabated. I don't see us all returning to small farms, mixed farming. Doesn't get away from you got to be in the black to be green. The conversation needs to go a long way to the consumer that their choices affect what's done on the ground. I often think we're the least influential people in agriculture, the farmer. We do react to prices. We do react to change in markets eventually. I just don't. I know it's not going to work without telling the future. I know this 1,400 kilograms of milk solids from the platform stocked at 3 cows a hectare. That's not going to work. Planting a hawthorn hedge wild bin stocked at 3 cows a hectare. That's not going to wash. You see it in New Zealand. You can sow all the plantain and chicory you want, but it doesn't get around stocking rate. That's an uncomfortable truth. It'll change the business model of a lot of lease farms and stuff. That's an uncomfortable truth we have to face up to. Dairy farming produces a lot of carbon. You know, I read 9 ton a hectare or acre, was it? That's an uncomfortable truth. We can mitigate some of that, but we're going to have that conversation. There's a lot of conversations to be had, Tommy, before we figure out where we're going. But for myself, I see myself going down more that environmental route anyway, trying more mixed species. I don't see us pushing on stocking rate. And where the market takes us after that, Tommy, I'm not 100% sure. But the legislation might determine a lot. You know, capitalism, like a lot of the conversation we're having at the minute is the conflict between capitalism and society. Capitalism, you know, produce money or make money, you know, farm intensively. That sustainable intensification was a buzzword a few years ago. Okay, yeah, that one's disappeared, and a lot of these buzzwords do disappear. But it's not all about capitalism. People value the environment, but nobody wants to pay for it, which is a slightly tricky thing. Will it be legislated on us? In a way, it's a weird sort of comparison, but like maternity leave. You know, no business wants to pay for that, but the government steps in and pays for it. And you can argue that the cap's going to morph more that way. They're going to put in payments for the environment, but whether they're enough to actually pay for what people say they want. Because at the end of the day, when people walk into the shop, you know, that old fact that you can survey somebody going into a shop what they're going to buy. They're going to buy on organic. They're going to buy on origin. The minute they go into that shop, they shop on price without fail, and it happens to us all, you know. So there's a lot of things to go on there, Tommy. Yeah, but we're going to keep going down the environmental route. We're not going to intensify cow numbers. We're going to try and keep our lifestyle part of the farm, or the farm part of our lifestyle. I don't know, Tommy. I really don't know what way we're going to look in 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, I think it's a very hard question, John, and it's interesting because you do, and I think you only have to listen to understand how much you've thought about this. And you know, you said some things that are going against the grain there that will make some people uncomfortable. But look, I think you're asking very valid questions. You're making very valid points, and we're probably coming into an uncomfortable phase. But it has to be economically sustainable for farmers as well, John. Whatever we do, whatever CAP looks like, whatever changes it make, and I know the sustainable intensification story. There's so much noise out there. I find that I'm probably in a similar space to you. My day job is the animal health stuff, but I'm working on projects that are trying to understand what will happen. And I'm trying to keep my mind as open as I possibly can to hear all this different noise and know what's relevant, know what's not. I can see where it's just maybe it's hard to predict the future. But I think you raised several points there throughout that people are going to have to listen to. And maybe if we come back to in 5 years' time, I think the writing's on the wall. We need to probably drive environment up as our number one. One of the biggest drivers are things that's going to impact not just farming now, in fairness, every business.
Yeah, and we need to start that conversation amongst ourselves, Tommy. We can't just talk about production and solids per hectare, and a lot of the Chuggish research is about environmental efficiency. But if you take away efficiency or environmental from those slides, it's just about technical efficiency, if you ask me, you know. And we need to start talking to the consumer again. We can't rely on industry to do it. They haven't done it. They're not they're not honest on our part. They're protecting their shareholders a lot of the time. And I've been lucky. I've got involved in a project with Aisling Meehan. She started a project, Understanding Agriculture. So, and she's an incredible woman, Aisling, and she's got some really good people on it from all sectors of ag. I think we're nearly 50-50 male, female. I think I'm the token male thrown in there at the end. I'm sort of a suspect, but they're trying to just start that conversation with consumers and just explain a bit more about farmers and where we're coming from. Just to make a connection, if anything else, Tommy, because we need to talk to each other to solve this. We need to be pragmatists, and that's where environmentalists need to grow up in a way and start and reach out to us. You know, in fairness to them, they're trying to move the needle, but to make any progress, we need to, for the benefit of everybody, we need to start talking to each other properly. You can move the needle as much as you want, but at the end of the day, farmers are going to be ones who are going to implement a lot of these changes, and it would be nice to be involved in that discussion.
Very important point. Very important point. John, extraordinarily thoughtful interview. You're very honest with me, which is I really appreciate. I really value that, to be honest with you. There's so much stuff there, and typical me, I jumped around, and you said something and I was like, God, I want to know more about that, and then you said something else, so apologies to people, I probably jumped around a little bit with you. Let's try and recap it, John, I suppose from a personal level. You're somebody who's thought a lot about things. You've gone through all the experiences of life, and there's going to be many more for you ahead, but some of the key lessons you've learned along the way, both as a person in farming, that have provided value. And I say that with the respect to maybe somebody who's in farming, or maybe not in farming, who's in their 20s and, you know, trying to find their way in the world. What are the lessons that you've learned that have helped you mature, develop? Is that a fair question to sum it up?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, try and understand people would be my number one. Value other people, and those two linked together. You know, like I wouldn't, when I was younger, I would have never valued the soft skills, the Joe Duffys of this world. Those soft skills, and they're so important. I mean, my wife has far more of those soft skills than me, and she's like a moral base for our family. So just to value all those different people. And there was a comedian once, and his mother said, she said, you're not listening to somebody, you're just waiting for them to stop talking so you can talk again. It's not to do that, is to actually listen to people. Not write off people, like you mightn't like certain traits in people, but to dig in behind that and try and understand them helps a lot. You see that with Trump, you see that with Brexit. You can label all those people as racists or as bigots, but there's a lot of complex things driving those voting patterns behind that. It's just not that straightforward. So yeah, that would be to understand people, to listen, communicate. I didn't realize how important that was when I was younger as well. I was so focused. Even with my father, the more I share with him, the more benefit he is to me. Yeah, and read widely, listen widely. Don't just read the Farmer's Journal and put it down and think you understand everything about agriculture. There's a whole big bad world out there. Yeah, that would sum it up for me. And
very, very sage advice, John. I sent you a message saying, would you come on? And you said, Jesus, Tommy, you must be running short of people if you're coming to me already. And I think people who listen to this will have got a flavour for why you were high up on my list of people to talk to. Even though I don't know you that well, I've been following you, met you on a few occasions. I really recognise that depth, that self-awareness. And I think, and this is my opinion, people should listen to what you're saying and watch what you're doing as maybe their barometer for the future. No pressure now, John. So I wish you well. I wish yourself and Carla well and the family well, and continued success as a farmer, and keep pushing it out. And the next time we talk, your jiu-jitsu, mindfulness, something even more complicated you'll be doing, and I've no doubt you'll be mastering it. So thank you. Thanks a million for your time, John.
Oh, thanks very much, Tommy, and well done to yourself for doing something like this and talking to people. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So well done, Tom.
I appreciate that. I'll send that €50 to you in the post now. So. Thanks, John. Come on.